Morning, we're on top of 3a, and we're on top of Gimel, Aleph, and we're by 3a. Now, the Mishnah start off with trying to find. Well, the Mishnah start off with the words. Just let me pull up the Mishnah over here. Hashutfin shiracha lasais mechitza b'chatzar. Partners that want to make a division in the chatzar. But it's a kaisa b'emsa. They have to go ahead and build a kaisa. So now, what's the mechitza? So now, originally we gave one explanation for mechitza. Meant I think in that case in the Gemara we explained that a mechitza was just like a barrier, a separation. I believe it'll come back to that in a minute. But another way to explain what a mechitza is. So another way to explain this Gemara, another way to explain this Savrua, my mechitza, they thought, what's a mechitza? Plukta, a division. It says a division of the congregation. So a mechitza means a division. Now we also the Gemara is talking about if Hezek Shmei Hezek. If you could see into someone else's yard, is that called a Is that called hezek? Is that called damaging or trespassing? Kivin the ratzu, and since they agreed to divide their courtyard, but it's a case of bal karchan, we are forced to go ahead, and they agreed to it. So we forced. If one of them want to back out, it's too late, and they have to go ahead and build a wall. Alma hezek shmei hezek. So we see from here that since they can't back out, it must be that hezekriya that when you see into someone's property, that's called damaging. Good morning, everyone. We are on the top of Gimel Amud Aleph, 3a, and it's right only a few lines down. It's quite a long daf, so we're gonna have to move it.
Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Now, so that's how we come out to the idea that a mechitza is a barrier, a division, and for the fact that they agreed to it, and then they can't retract and go back on it, must be that hezek shmei hezek, that when you look into someone's property, that's damage. Emamai mechitza. But what do you mean the word mechitza? It's a wall. Another way to understand it. So now we're just finishing. The mechitza means a division. Now we're saying mechitza means an actual good, an actual physical wall. The Tanya, because we learned in a brisa, mechitza sakarim shnifritza. There was a vineyard whose walls were broken. Amlai Gedar, and the field next door said, go build it. Now, the reason why they have to go build it, because he's afraid if it's a wheat field next door, the wheat's going to overgrow, or the vines are going to overgrow, get mixed in together. That's klaim. You're not allowed to go ahead and have, you can't have wheat and grapes grow together. Now, so Amal Gedar, he said, go build it. At one point, he never really built it. He just gave up on it and it just stayed there. And then ends up being that if they end up growing together, it's going to be a problem and it's going to be usr. And the one who didn't build the wall, who was responsible to build the wall, he has to pay for any loss. Yeah, okay. Now the time of the ratu. Now the reason, back to our Mishnah. Now, so the point is, we see from here that it means mechitza means an actual wall, not just a division. Because we said that we used the word in this case that he's required to build a mechitza, and in this case, the mechitza could only be a wall. So it must be that mechitza is a wall. Fine. Now, the time of the ratu. Now, the reason Bezin has to force them to go ahead and build the wall is because they agreed originally to build it. It says rasu. The Mishnah says shnaim shrasu, two people that wanted to. Rasu. But if they didn't agree in the beginning, Bezin cannot go ahead and obligate them to build it. So we just finish off saying that it must be, we see from a Mishnah that visual if you've seen to someone's property, that's called visual damage, and they require them to build a wall. But no, the only reason they're building walls is because they agree to it. Once they agree to it, you can't backtrack. But it doesn't prove to us that if you see to someone else's property from your property, you have to build a wall to stop yourself seeing in. So we explain. Fine. So that's the question. So you can't prove from our Mishnah. Fine. Now, that would be another way to understand the Mishnah. So, now we're going back on the idea that mechitza actually means wall. Yachi, if it really means wall, but it's a kaisel. Why does the Mishnah say you should build a kaisel? Meaning, if mechitza means wall, then it's superfluous. Just saying, two people that agreed to build a wall and then they built the wall. Rather, just say they built it. It would be going on the wall. So again, why would it say mechitza means wall? It's going to say two partners agreed to build a wall, then they built the wall. Just say two partners agreed to build a wall and then they built it. It is obviously going on the wall. That's the question. So it doesn't make that much sense that mechitza means a wall. So on this we say, so no, it's not that much of a question. Sorry, I skipped. Elamai plukta. So must be what's a mechitza, right? Mechitza just means a generic division. So mechitza. Why does it say the Mishnah of two partners who want to go ahead and build the mechitza? Just say they agree to divide it. So whichever way you cut it, mechitza is going to be hard to translate. Whether it's a wall, it doesn't work so well into the Mishnah, because then why say wall? They say why they say they built a wall? They say they built it is a wall. And if you say that it's going on a division, just say that they wanted to split it. Why do you have to say they wanted to agree to build they agreed to divide it? And that we say no, because we say this is a normal. We're just saying this is the normal way people talk. So you can't really be medayik and learn from the way the Mishnah writes it, because the Mishnah is just saying people say that, come, let's go make a wall. Let's go make a plukta, let's go make a division. Now, Via has a Yomi Bava. Now the Gemara, we're going back and forth if we really could prove that a visual, that if you see into someone's property, that's called damage, and therefore you're required to block your sight, your view of your line of sight. My area ratzu. Why does the Mishnah agree? If it's true, again, if it's true that you have that visual damage is called damage, my area ratzu, then why does it say? Why it seems to be saying in the Mishnah two partners that agreed to divide it? Why do you have to agree to divide it if the whole reason why they're doing it because of visual damage? Even if they didn't want to, if it's called damage, then Bezin could come down and force them to go ahead and split it. Rabbi Yochanan. So remember, this is Rav Asi, and we're going to come back to this a few times. So Rav Asi's answer is Mishaseinu b'shein ba didn't chaluka. And Mishnah talking about when there wasn't enough land to split it. Because if you force them to split, if it's more than 8 by 8 and more, so when you force them to split, each are left with 4 by 4. That's the lowest. That's called a property. But if it's less than 8 by 8, and each are getting less than 4 by 4, you can't force anyone to split a property if each are going to come out with less than 4 by 4. Bezin is not allowed to do that. So that's the answer. Therefore, they had to agree to do it because Bezin couldn't come down and do it. That we say that's the whole Mishnah. The whole Mishnah is coming to tell is specifically in a case when each side is left with less than 4 by 4. If we force them, what's the chiddush of the Mishnah? The chiles beidin chaluka kiras to pligi. That the whole thing is that you have to divide the courtyard. There's no din chaluka unless they want it. Tanina, we already learned this. Emasai. So now we're already into the Mishnah. We're bringing on the Mishnah. I believe this Mishnah is later on. It's going to come up soon in a few dafim. When both, we're going to quote the Mishnah now. When both sides don't want to, that's when, if both sides don't want to split it. When both sides want to split it, even if it's less than 4 by 4, you're allowed ahead and go and do it. So if the whole chiddush of the Mishnah is that we cannot force to do it unless they're left with 4 by 4, but if they agree, then we do split less than 4 by 4. The Mishnah later on tells us that. So what's the chiddush of our Mishnah? Our answer is, if you learn from the Mishnah later on, I might think that even if it's, I might think that if they agree to divide a property even smaller than each side less than 8 by 8, meaning each side would get less than 4 by 4, then I might think that since they agreed to do it, I could just take put some stakes in the ground and make a visual marker to agree to say this is your side and this is my side. No, if you agree to do it, you have to actually build a kaisel. Why do you have to build a wall? If you agree to divide a property, just draw a line down the middle, and everyone knows which side there are. The answer is you have to agree to build a kaisel is because it has agree Shmei Hezek that once you agree to divide a property, you have to agree to actually that means you have to agree to build a wall, because if not, each side is going to see into each other. Okay, so say our Mishnah. From our Mishnah, now we learn two things. Number one, you have to agree to split a property less than 8 by 8, which means each side will get less than 4 by 4. Number two, once you agree to do it, you have to build a wall because because you're going to see into each other's property. Now we say the Kisei Kodesh al pi shneim roitzim lo yechaliku. No, we need that Mishnah for something else. That said, that if both of us have holy Torah, if both of us have a Torah scroll and we share it, you're not allowed to split it. You're not allowed to cut up a Torah scroll. That's why we need that Mishnah. Okay, now for the sake of time, I'm just going to skip the brackets, and we're going to go to the two dots.
Could you repeat where we are again?
Yeah, sure. So we are, if you want to look at the art scroll, we are 3A, 3 in art scroll, or we are at the two dots, which are about 5 lines up from the mid-wide lines. Yeah?
I don't have
So it's here. It would be 3A, 3.
Okay.
First column on bottom, b'maya kimta.
Thank you.
Okay. Now remember, Rav Asli came out. We had a question, and the Gemara's question was why, if it's true, has a great hezek. If it's true that if there's visual damage, you force someone to split it, why did the Mishnah have to say that they agree? Even if they don't agree to split the land, even if they don't agree to build a wall, still they would have to go ahead and build a wall because Bezin's going to force them. Hezek. You're causing each other damage, so you got to stop the damage. How do you stop the damage? By building a wall. So and Rashi gave an answer because it's less than 4, but each are going to be, we can't split it because it's 8 by 8. If therefore each side are going to have less than 4 by 4, therefore you cannot go ahead and force them to split it. Now. And that we say, Maya Kimta, Limas what is the case of the Mishnah? B'shem badin chaluka. The case is when there's not enough space to go ahead and split it. Ib'shem badin chaluka. But if we're talking about a case when there's not enough split, if the property is not big enough to split it, Hirasu Mayahavi. Who cares if they agree to divide it? Nardabuhu, they still always could backtrack. So our question is that if it's really true that it's not big enough to require you to divide it, so therefore just a verbal agreement should not be enough. It's because it says Rasu. All they didn't do anything else. They Rasu. They just agreed to go ahead and do it. They want to do it. But just because you want to do something doesn't mean you're required to do it. So there was no actual transaction that would force them to do it. Now we say very simple. Amar Vasi, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Shekanam Yadan. When they made when they acquire one from another, just like when you sell your chametz, you go to the Rav, and the Rav gives you something like a pen, and you pick it up. So that sort of cements the deal in halacha. Therefore, the same thing happened here. So now they can't go back on it. That we say, who cares if they acquire from each other? How does that help? Again, you are just going ahead and you're solidifying the fact that you said something, but that shouldn't be enough. As if you're acquiring words, but you didn't acquire the land yet. And that we say, that what happened is that they acquired each other on size, I think. I took my side and you took your side. You actually acquired the land itself. Or I walked through my property and I actually, when you're walking on property, that itself makes a chazaka. The chazaka is what acquires it, and that's what you did in order to cement the deal. Okay, so the point is they wanted to do it, and then they actually followed up on it, and they did an action which halachically made the deal binding. So now Bezin could come down and force them to do it because they agreed to do it, and they actually and they did something that actually made it legally binding. Okay, now we are on the last middle. There's two small mid lines on Gimel Amud Aleph, and we are by the two dots. So the first line of the first word of the second middle line, which in the R scroll is the bottom of 3A3 at the very bottom. Makam Mishnagu, you have it? I think it's right there. Yeah, a little higher up. Yeah, right there. Yeah, Makam Mishnagu 3A3.
Okay.
Yeah, do you have it?
Yeah.
Okay. Makashnagu livnei. So he said a place where it's normal to build, the Mishnah went through all these different type of bricks. Said if you build with this brick, each side has to give 3 and 3 because these stones are 6 wide, or it's 2.5 and 2.5 because they're 5 wide. Went through all the instances. Whatever the custom is to utilize to build a barrier, build a wall, that's what you have to use. Now we say Makashnagu livnei. Gvil avnei dloi mishpayo. Now I think that the Gvil in the Mishnah was each side had to give 3. That means 3 tfachim. That means the bricks were 6 tfachim wide, right? So why is it so? That's pretty wide, right? And that we say is because they're not cut stones. They're rough stones. And therefore, it wasn't sanded down, and therefore it had that extra space. Now gazis. The gazis was a smaller one, which I think were 5. Each side had to give 2.5 or 5 of total. Gazis is the mashpaya, is that they were sanded down and therefore they were carved out and they're much nicer, and at the same time they saved a lot of space. Because it writes, Ki gazis, and these were the stones that was which were the measurement after they were cut down. Kfisin. Now the Mishnah also spoke about bricks, so those were stones. But in a place where there's bricks, and I think the bricks was the kfisin were 2 and 2 tefachim each side, therefore that's 4 tefachim wide. Kfisin archei, they were half-side bricks. Levain and Livni, and Levanim were full-size bricks, and the Levanim were the smallest amount, I believe. And each side went ahead and gave 1.5, so the total of 3, right? Gvil was gimel and gimel. Gazis was 2.5 and 2.5. Kfisin was 2 and 2, and Levanim, yeah. Okay. Now. That's what we say. Now we're gonna. I know you should be asking a question that if the kfisin are half side bricks and they took up 4, then why would the full side bricks take up 3? That was the question. Gemara is going to explain. Okay. I would think half side bricks were less. Amalei Rabbi buried Rava the Rashi. So the Rava the son of so Rabbi buried Rava said to Rashi, who said that the gvil are stones which are not carved out properly, and therefore there's a lot of extra space. And the extra tefach is because the sides were coming out so much, because again, they weren't cut down to size. Perhaps they really were half the size of the smooth bricks, smooth stones. And what was extra tefach in between? Because they had to put the cement. So he's saying that who said they were so wide because they weren't cut down? Maybe so we said that the cut bricks were 5 wide. Maybe this was half of them, so it was 2.5 and 2.5. So then why do you need 6 tefachim? Because what happened was that you have a brick here and you have a brick here, but since I guess a stone, and since they weren't wide enough to support the wall, they needed to have and they were on each side. But how were they kept together? You put cement in between. So you had a tefach in between of cement. You had 2.5 on this side, 2.5 on this side. That gives you 6. So who said it was one solid stone? Maybe it was a stone on the left side, stone on the right side, and an extra tefach in the middle to give you 6. That's Gemara's question. And that we say, because we said similarly, when we came to the bricks, we said that the kfisin were half size and the levanim were full size. And the kfisin needed more space and extra tefach than the levanim. Why? The reason is because you had a brick on the left, you had a brick on the right, and you had to put cement in the middle. So just like we said by the bricks, perhaps we should apply that to the stones. And that we answer, Amar Lei, so Rashi said back, according to your reasoning, kfisin archim min alan, how do you know kfisin were half-size bricks? Who said maybe kfisin were large-sized bricks, the levanim were smaller? El Gemara Gemara must be because this is how we knew it. Gemara Gemara usually means halach moshe messina. Now we're not going to say halach moshe messina on the side of the bricks. That we understand. That's what the Mishnah meant, because that's what was handed down through the generations. So just like over there, we only know because Rabbi told the Talmud, and Rabbi told the Talmud. Same thing here. It's only taught as a tradition. Therefore, don't ask questions on this. It's a tradition. Don't ask. You're right. You might be right, but just like by the bricks, we explained it that way. So, and how do we know it by the bricks? Because of tradition. Same thing by the stone. Now we're going to just ikadami in a different way to explain this conversation. How do you know that the kfisin that were in the Mishnah, which needed more space than full-size bricks, how do you know the kfisin were half-size bricks? Then why, if they were thinner, why do you need extra tefach? Because the bricks itself they didn't lay brick on top of brick. Since they're half-size bricks, they had a brick on one side, brick on the other side, and they put tefach and they put cement in middle. Dilma, my kfisin, maybe perhaps what are kfisin? Avnei, hold on. Fine. On that way, fine. How do you know that they were half-side bricks and they need an extra tefach. Dilma my kfisin, how do you know also kfisin avnei delay mashpin? How do you know kfisin were so wide because they weren't cut, right? They weren't cut to size, right? Tefach yisrael more de karnasa. And the extra tefach was actually because it was so thick it protruded on each side. Karmina gvil avnei mashpin, just like we say that the gvil was not cut stone, because avnei mashpin perhaps gazis was cut stone. Right? Tefach yisrael more de karnasa. And the extra thickness was for the gvil. So again, the same question as before. Why do you assume that it was because it was extremely thick? Perhaps it was half-sized stones, and each side needed cement in the middle, and the same thing by the stones, by the bricks. Amarlei, well, tamech. According to reason, gvil avnei lamashvim. How do you know the gvil are non-cut stones? El gemara, rather. We know, as we know, it's a tradition. Hachanami, gemara gemirla. Here too, it's just a tradition. Okay, now we're going to go. And we're going to talk about, we're going to go further in this case and talk about just practically how do you build a wall. Amar Baya, Shema, we see from the Mishnah, Kol Beini Urve Tefach, anything that has two sides of, anything that will have two sides, the wall has a brick on the left and a brick on the right, or a stone on the left and a stone on the right, it needs to go ahead and it'll always have a tefach of cement in between. Okay, just so you should know that if you build a wall and you're not building a solid stone, rather you're sort of putting two stones together on each side, you're going to have cement in between. Hani, mili, betina. This is talking about, I guess cement's the wrong word. This is pure tin, is tit. Tit is, tina is mud. If you're going to end up using cement with rock, little stones and mud, it's going to need more space. Some say when you need a tefach, that's when you go ahead and you include mud and stones. Pure mud, you don't need so much, you can use less space. Okay, now we're going to continue talking about stones and the width of wall. The memar, do you mean say the begazes the chol dal am is goy v'havi t'hay porta chamsha? Now you're going to do some math and we're going to figure out that for every 5 tefachim you get 4 ames of height. Kai. That's when the wall will actually be able to be held up. But if it can't, it's going to end up falling. Now, the way it says that is, I think, how do we get to that number? I think we get to that number because because the Mishnah says that you have to build 4 ames, and the widest, okay, I don't know why, by Gazas, okay, each stone is different. But over here we're saying by the Gazas, specifically stones which were cut to size. So they're 5 tefachim wide. The Mishnah said that it has to be 4, the Mishnah says it has to be 4 ames high. So why does it say that? So why does it have to be 5 tefachim? We're saying, so this is the most that a wall of 5 tefachim wide could be is 4 ames. It's a simple, we're just taking an assumption. We're basically assuming. Now, and that we say, is that really true? That a wall of cut stone, a wall of sanded stone, if it's 5 tefachim, all it could be is 4 tefachim, 4 ames high. Any more than that, it's going to fall. For amatraxin, which was the wall in the base of Mikdash that separated the Kodesh Kodashim, which housed the Aron, the Holy Ark, and the Mishkan, which had the Menorah and the Shulchan, that wall, to have a Gavaya Tlasin Amasa. In the first base of Mikdash, that was 30 ames high. And it was only 6 tefachim wide. Yet it stood. So, you see, it's not true. It was 6 tefachim, and it went a lot higher than 4 ames. Now we say, even the Ika Tefach Yisera. No, because it was 6 tefachim, not 5 tefachim. Somehow they got an extra tefach into it. Kai. So the extra tefach was able to help out up to 30. So you're right, if it's only 5, it's only go up to 4 ames high. If these stones are only 5 tefachim wide, it only can support a wall up to 5 ames. But once you add on the extra tefach, it can even bring it all the way up to 30. I have Mikdasheni in my time like Avad Amatraxon, and in the second base of Mikdash, the separation between the Kodesh Kodashim, which housed the Ark, the Holy Ark, and the Kodesh which had the Menorah and the Shulchan, that did not have a wall. Rather, just had like a partition. Why did it not have a wall? Why did it just have a partition? Plus and kai, because we said that the 6 tefachim wide could only support up to 30 ames. Tefei like kai, but more than that it can. And in the second base it was 100 amis high, and therefore they couldn't build it because they had to put up a curtain. It was very high. It was 100 amis high. Yeah. And how do we know that it stood that in the second temple this wall or this area or the ceiling was higher than that in the first temple? The Chizkiah writes, that the second temple was more greater than this first temple. Some say, how was it better? It was better because the building was more beautiful. And then we turn to the top of Gimel Amud Beis, Bishnaim and Bishanim. Others say that it lasts an extra 10 years, right? It was longer in years. I think the first temple was 400, the second temple was 410. And that was Isu Lahav, Isu Lahav. They're both right. One was saying that it was a physical, greater structure. One was 100 amis, and the first was 30 amis. Another one said they lost line, but they're both true. Okay. Now we're trying to say maybe we could have got a amatraxin. Maybe in the second temple we could have had a wall which included a physical wall, not just a curtain. Let us. So if it's true that if it's 5 tefachim wide, the wall could only go up to 30 amis. Okay, so have the wall up to 30 amis. And from 30 to 100, put up a curtain. Then we say kikat klasin amasanami. Because that we say kikai tlasin amasinami. Because even when it stood at 30 amis, agav tikra umaziva havikai. In the first base of Mikdash, we said that if it's 6 tefachim wide, it could go up to 30 amis. Now, the only reason it could go up to the 30 amis is because there was a ceiling supporting it. If you think about it, right? There's a ceiling on top that had plaster, had cement. There was a pressure on the top. It was able to hold up. But if you don't have the ceiling, then even 30 amis it can't hold up. That we say Ulevad my Daf opinion. Okay, so we're not architecture. We don't know the minute. Why didn't they just build as high as they could, and then after that you could and then you can add on a preiches afterwards. And then so let's say it's 10 amis with the wall, and then we'll say the next 90 amis is going to be a actual preiches. So Amar Abaye says Gemiri there is a halacha Moshe Sinai. A law passed down from Sinai. Iklu b'binyan. Either it was totally just a wall, iklu b'parches, or it was totally just a curtain. And the reason is because in the Mishkan it was only a curtain. In the first temple it was only a wall. We learn from there that's only a wall, or only a physical wall, or only a curtain, and that's it. Another reason for this, iklu b'binyan b'mikdash, if I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. Either it was Halacha Moshe Sinai, and it was taught down from generation to generation from Sinai that you cannot do more. It's either all a wall or all a curtain. Another source is Iklo b'midim mikdash, just like in the base of Mikdash was just a wall. Iklo b'perches b'mishkan, or only a perches in the Mishkan. So they derived in the second temple that either had to be this way because of the temple, which was a wall, or a curtain because of the Mishkan, but you can't mix them up. Okay, now we're going to continue and talking about stones. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lines down from the top of Gimel Amud Beis 3b Yibayiluhu in the middle. Yibayiluhu. We had a question. Hein v'sidin. Do we say that the width of, remember the Mishnah said either it could be 6 tefachim, or it could be 5 tefachim, or it could be 4 tefachim, or it could be 3 tefachim wide. Does that include the sidin? Does that include the plaster that they plastered along the walls to cover up the holes, I guess, cover up the lines? Or without it? We assume that they're together with the sidin, with the plaster. If you tell me that's without the plaster, then the Mishnah should have included that into the plaster, into the actual measurement. It must be, it was with the plaster. Because if it didn't have plaster, why didn't the Mishnah include it? It should have said 5.5 tefachim, 6.5 tefachim. It should have added on extra. And that would say, no, that's not a proof. Really, it did not include the plaster. But since the extra plaster would not add on a whole other tefach, it wasn't that much plaster for each side. It wasn't half a tefach on one side of plaster that's very extremely thick. Laitani, we didn't mention it. It was negligible, therefore we didn't include it. And that we say Hakatani, but was not. But we did learn in the Mishnah. So we see we do half sizes. Each gives 2.5, gives 2.5. So perhaps we should also include that, even though it wasn't a full tefach. Hasam chazi l'shrufe. Yeah, but a half tefach could come together to include one tefach. But the plaster is so small that if you put them together, you're still not going to even get a full tefach. It's not a half a tefach. It's not even a quarter. Therefore, it's so small, we're not even going to deal with it. But the point is that the plaster is not going to reach together a tefach, therefore we're not going to include it. So again, the Gemara doesn't say either includes it or doesn't include it. We don't really know. Tashma. Now we spoke about a beam in the Mishnah. The beam that was mentioned in the Mishnah. This is a beam in Erevin that we said that in order to create a proper, I think it's a lachi, in order to go ahead and create a proper Erev, you have to have a beam on top of the doorway. Now, this beam, rachba k'dei l'kabel ariach. The way they spoke about this specific beam was talking about a rachba had to be as wide, k'dei in order l'kabel ariach to accept, in order to wide enough to hold up or accommodate a half-side brick. And from there we understand whatever a half-size brick is has to be the width of this beam. What's in a riach? The Mishnah said over there, in a riach, this brick is half the size of a full brick, which is 3 tfachim. So it must be that a riach, which is a half-size brick, is 1.5 wide. So we see from here that it doesn't include the plastering, because our Mishnah also says that an riach is 1.5. An riach was 2 and 2. Because I have half-sized bricks. Why was this 2 and 2? 1.5 on this side, 1.5 on this side gives you 3, and 1 in middle for the cement. So it must be it did not include the plastering, because there's no reason why in Erevin, when we're talking about the trying to figure out the width of a beam, and we're utilizing the half-sized brick to figure it out, there's no plaster there for sure not. So we see from there that there's no plaster. Then we say no. Hasam birav ravasa. In the case of an Erevin, it was a high. Apparently, there were different sized bricks even within each family. So this was a larger sized brick, which if you cut in half was 3 tfachim without the plaster. Dekanami, but however, in our case, it could be very well be that we don't have such wide bricks. It was a little smaller, and therefore, when we say 3 tfachim, it was because we had to get to 3 tfachim, it was slightly smaller. The answer is because of the plaster. The Kanami also could sort of be medayik that, figure that from Mishnah. The Tani shel shloisha tfachim. We said a full size brick is 3 tfachim. Mechlal deika sutra. So we see from here that there are sizes smaller than that there are different sizes than a full size brick, because we said shel shloisha tfachim. Why are you giving us numbers? We already know this from before. Therefore, perhaps it's not going to be a proof. Shema Mina. We learn from the Mishnah Erevin that it must be that the plaster was included in our measurement, because it seems from our Mishnah that really wasn't 3 tfachim, it was a little smaller than 3 tfachim. So then what was the extra? The extra was a plaster. Okay. Now, Amar Chista, Sefer Chista. So now we're going to go into little Agadita. And we're going to try to, we have 10 minutes, so we'll try to make it to the bottom. Amar Chista. A person cannot go ahead and destroy a shul ad the beni beit knisht achriti until you build another shul. Now, why is this? What's the reason? Some say because you might destroy one shul, you might destroy the shul, and not have the funds to continue building another shul, and then you end up destroying shul and left with nothing, and the community is not going to have any shul. Some say no, we're not worried that we know you're going to be building the shul, but where are you going to daven during that time? So therefore, you have to build the second shul, and then you could destroy the first shul. My b'nai, what's the practical difference between the two? If there's a place to, if you could pray in a different shul, you could pray in someone's house. Then if it's the second reason, there's no problem. There will be a place to pray until it's all built. But if the first reason, then you're not going to end up building it, that's going to be a problem, because it's this place is just a temporary place to pray. Now we have a bit of stories. That these two Amram, they went and they this interesting city had 2 shuls. They had a winter shul and a summer shul. The summer shul had wide windows, let the air through and a breeze, and the summer shul, I guess, and the winter shul didn't. So what did they do? That they they destroyed and built in summer shul during the winter, so that they had a place to pray. And in the summer they destroyed the winter shul and they rebuilt it, since it was a temporary place placed in between. So it seems to be going like the second ruling of Rav Chisda, that the problem is not that they're going to forget to do it, but the issue is that where you're going to daven. So they had a place to daven because it was in the winter, and they're destroying the summer shul, and they had the winter shul to daven in. Amalei Ravin Rashi, another story. Ravin said to Rashi, Gavu zuze umachase. What happened? No, story. What happens if they actually collect the funds? They have in the bank account. They have $100,000 in the bank, and they can use that, and that's enough to cover the renovations. My what's the halacha? Amalei dilma misrami lu pigeon shvuyin. Yeah, what happens if we're afraid? No, you can't do it. Why? Until the second shul is fully built, even if you have the funds. Because what happens if there's a hostages come through town and you have to redeem them? You have to take the money. Let's say you have the Home Depot deliver the bricks and they deliver the beams. Everything's outside waiting. You have all the material. My what's the halacha now? Again, it's going to happen. Hostages may come through. You're going to have to redeem them. And you have to sell the material in order to buy it. So again, do not destroy a shul until you built a new one. So, if that's the concern, that captives, you're going to have to sell something in order, you have to sell the material in order to get the captives. Even if they built the shul, there's always this concern. So it's going to go on forever, this concern. And that we say no. They want something is sold, once something is utilized. If a building is being utilized, and no one's going to sell it for captives. Okay. So again, the halach is even if you have all the material, it's not going to help you. You have to actually build the second shul, and only then could you destroy the first shul. Now, we only said this halacha that you're not allowed to destroy a shul before rebuilding, before having another shul. It's only when you do not see cracks in the wall, and you just so why are you building a new shul? It's more convenient. They want to build a nicer shul, but the first shul is fully usable. If you see cracks in the wall, then you have to destroy that shul because it's dangerous. It's dangerous to live in, and how is it going to help you if the shul is going to collapse on your head? Therefore, you better go destroy it. He saw cracked in the shul in Masa Machse, which is the city. Sasre, he immediately instructed them to destroy it. Now, in order to ensure that this thing was built extremely quickly, then he ordered them to go ahead to build a new one. He brought his bed there. He placed his bed in the construction site. And he did not remove until they actually finished every single detail. Because again, he was afraid it wasn't get done. But if the grand rabbi is sleeping on the construction site, they really picked up speed and they got it done on time. Now, Bava Ben Buta, we're going to Bava Ben Buta right now. This is the first word. Sorry, it's towards the end of the first wide line on Gimel Beis. Now we're going to get to Bava Batra, the whole story with him later. But we're going to have to. But right now, I think tomorrow, or we're going to go through the story. But there is a story with Bava Batra. All you have to know is that he instructed Hordis, the king, to rebuild the temple. And they destroyed the temple, and then they rebuilt it. And that we say, how could he tell Hordis to destroy the Beis HaMikdash? Rav Chisda said you can't destroy a shul. Add the bani begin shachvita. How could you destroy the Beis HaMikdash if you didn't build the Beis HaMikdash first? Obviously, you can't do that. So how could you ever renovate the Beis HaMikdash if you couldn't rebuild it first? The Beis HaMikdash had to be in a spot. And that we say, one answer is to a chazabay. That Bava Batra actually saw cracks in the walls of the temple. Since you saw cracks in the wall, therefore it's a problem, and therefore you have to go rebuild it. Others say, Malchus Shani. No, if a king instructed them to go ahead and destroy, or the king rather himself, he went ahead and destroyed it, he's not going to go back on it. Again, a king who says he's going to do something, he has to keep up his word, or else people can see that he's weak, and they're just going to rise up and kill him, and rise up against him. So a king always has no choice but to keep his word. So since the king said, I'm going to rebuild it, we knew it's going to get rebuilt. Damar Shmuel says, Yamar Malchusa Akre Ture, if a king says, I will destroy this mountain, he's going to end up doing it, which is an impossible thing, but he'll end up getting it done. Now we're going into the story of Hordis, what happened. He was just a slave, and how did he actually rise up to become king? Hordis was originally a slave in the Chashmonaim house. The Chashmonaim were the kings who won over the Syrian Greeks, and they pretty much ruled they took over the kingship and they didn't give it over to Yehuda, and because of that they got punished. And you'll see how they got punished. But they were the kings, and Horus was a slave. Nasan Eina Ba'isa Tunaikes. He ended up. There was a princess, one of the daughters of the Hashmonite king. He saw her and he wanted to marry her. And one day he heard a baskol, which is a heavenly voice, say, "Kol avda, any slave, the murder that rebels, hashta right now, matzlach. He's going to end up succeeding." What did he do? He got up. He killed Lukuli Marvasa. He killed out the entire house of the Hashmonaim. Mishari, and he left over like he knew Kasa, and he left it, but he spared the life of that princess because he wanted to marry her. When she saw what's happening, that he wants to marry her, she climbed up to the roof. And she raised her voice and she said, "Come on, anyone, the Asav Amar who comes and says, from the house of the Hashmonaim Kasina, I am from Avdihu." He's not really he doesn't have any royal blood. In fact, Avadu, he's an Eved. For the only one that remains from the entire house of Hashmonaim is me. And then, what did she do? Then she committed suicide. She jumped from the roof and she killed herself. Therefore, she committed suicide, which I'm assuming is the right thing because he wanted to marry her and he wasn't Jewish. But regardless, there was no one left. So he went ahead and Horus, the king, who is now the king, went ahead and he preserved her body for 7 years in honey. Igad Amri Bala, some say she had relations with the body. Igad Amri Le Bala, some say he didn't. Damala Bala, those who say that he had relations with her body. Hat Timna Lusul Yitra. Why did he preserve her? He preserved in order to satisfy his desires. With Amri Le Bala, one say that he didn't. He preserved her body in order that she could say Bas Melch Nasav. He said, anyone like say, here's my wife dripping in honey, sitting on the royal throne. That's why he did it. In order, because if you think about it, he definitely had a complex because he was a slave, and therefore he had no legitimacy to the kingship. Mm-hmm. So he preserved the body to claim he had some type of legitimacy. Now Amar. Now once he actually went ahead and he got the throne for himself and he consolidated his power. Amar, he said, "Man Darish, who's the one who holds?" The pasuk explicitly states that the king could only be someone from among the brothers, has to be from the Jewish nation, which he wasn't. Rabbanan, it's the rabbis who actually teach this verse. Come, katlinu l'kuli Rabbanan. He killed out all the rabbis. Shavcha lebava ben buta lemishkal atzi minei. But he spared Bava ben Buta, who gave him the idea to destroy the second temple and rebuild it in glory. He kept him alive in order to get some advice from him. Now, but even though he's very nice that he spared his life, he still went ahead and he blinded him with he put something around his eyes with poison, or some it says a porcupine hide. Anyway, nakrinu la'ine, and he gouged out his eyes and he killed him. Now, okay, I think we're going to end here because the rest is all stories. All right. We got to Dalit. I think I'm here tomorrow and maybe Sunday. I think Rabbi Rimmer will be back early next week, I believe. I don't know. Yeah. All right, so tomorrow, I guess we have a lot to fly through. It's extremely long, but it's hopefully easy because it's all stories. Besides, the second side is not so simple. All right, have a great shot.